Monday, everybody, and welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at the Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges, and subscribe to us wherever you listen.
And if you like this show, give us that 5-star review.
And as always, we taught judging in MMA. You should learn the criteria by reading it at abcboxing.com.
Dan, you have had quite an adventure getting home from being in attendance at UFC 273 the other day in Jacksonville. You are now in your home in New Jersey. I did not come to the recording studio, the lab, tonight. I stayed in my house. We're doing this remote. But yeah, you had a little bit of an adventure getting home, right?
It was an adventure going. It was an adventure coming. Going, they were offering people $2,500 to give up their seat, but they just couldn't guarantee when we'd get into Jacksonville. And I'm like, well, I'm not missing this card, so
I would have given serious consideration to keeping the $2,500.
I was thinking about it, but then they're like, we can probably get you to Florida, just don't know what city. And I'm like, well, I have a rental in Jacksonville.
I don't even take that. No, you could have gotten an Uber and just paid a lot of money. You already got $2,500.
I don't know. And then I was delayed coming home. So
yeah, but then what happened at the very end?
Oh, and then the very end,
you're missing the big part.
Yeah, the pilot was like, you know what, crash land, let's do it. Just like seriously, the landing gear needs to be checked out before that plane flies again.
Well, what happened? Tell what happened.
We hit so hard. Like originally we're just cruising and I'm like, oh wow, this is one of the smoothest landings I've ever had. And I'm like, wait, did we even touch the ground yet? And then boom, slamming into the ground. I'm like, holy crap. I think I actually let out an audible holy expletive.
Holy cannoli? Cannoli?
No holy cannolis. Yeah.
That is wild. Well, you're here. I hope you watched your step as I advised.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Plane didn't move again when you were trying to get off or something.
No.
Right? That's good. Well, I'm glad you made it, and now we can actually talk about these fights. Because I mean, you obviously had a unique perspective on it. Anything you saw when you were watching, I'm sure, was probably not the greatest perspective as far as from a scoring standpoint.
From a scoring, no. I mean, I put some things of how I felt fights were going, and then I didn't hear the scores and be like, huh, guess not.
And you said you were drinking on the earlier side of the
I was enjoying some Howler Head because why wouldn't I? They're basically the new
do
new
what
Mickeys.
Dana tells you to do.
They're the new Mickeys.
That's right. Yeah. So, but obviously you ended up watching the rounds later on.
Yeah.
Through the UFC pay-per-view. You logged in under my name. We have traded before. It's turnabout is fair play, my friend. So
yes,
happy
sir.
to return the favor that you've done for me.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, obviously there were amazing fights here. You know, the last 3 fights I think they were all fascinating in their own way for kind of different reasons. But let's start with, I think you have to start with Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns, just because it was just, I mean, being there live for that had to be amazing. Dan.
The crowd was going bananas, just insanity the whole way. Chimaev, he must have burned like, I don't know, 400, 500 calories just waiting for Burns to get to the ring. That guy doesn't stop moving, jumping around. Like I think he needs to kind of tone it down for someone who potentially could have gas tank issues in a 5-rounder. At 170, I would say. Probably not at 185 as much.
Sure. You know what I thought was fascinating was after the fights, he was at the analyst table, you know, with like, I don't think Anik was there yet, but it was kind of, you know, with the post-fight crew, right? And they asked him what he weighed coming in, and he said like he sounded like he wasn't very sure. He thought it was like I forget what kilograms he said, but it translated to, or it converted to just under 190 pounds, which sounded low to me.
I find it hard to believe that Paddy Pimblett weighs more than him.
Yeah, I would have to think he was somewhere in the 90s, 190.
He was up there.
But I mean, come on. Is this the fight of the year leader right now?
It's definitely the 3-round fight leader for sure. I'd have to, I mean, I still got Kattar Chikadze number 1, but I really, you know, when I watched them both again, being there, feeling the crowd for this one,
it does change.
this one was awesome.
because I kind of almost had the same feel when I was at the Garden for Gaethje and Michael Chandler, because the
Yeah.
buzz isn't really in the air. You
Hmm.
can you get the sense of it a lot more being in the house.
Yeah.
It colors your perspective.
People were going so crazy. Like Hamzat, when he came out, he was the favorite for sure. People were going crazy for him.
Which I still think is crazy because Gilbert Burns lives in Florida.
But once Burns started putting it on him a little bit, there was Gilbert chants. That people were going nuts for both ways. It was awesome.
By the way, Dan, here's the question for you. This is a little off topic, but just thinking of Florida here. Is Florida the worst state, or is it the second worst state?
I liked Florida. I got no issue with them.
So second worst. Got it. Interesting. I go the other way.
I did get a sunburn. I got a sunburn this afternoon.
This is another reason why Florida is awful. is the stupid weather. I always burn. Actually, I didn't burn when we went in February because it was February, so I got lucky there. But yeah, I feel like I always burn there, or it's just humid and terrible. Or at least when we went in February, it somehow was actually colder than it was in New Jersey. It's like, what the heck?
No,
worst place ever.
I lucked out with weather-wise. It was kind of nice. It wasn't hot, wasn't humid. Just a nice, breezy kind of. Floridians were wearing hoodies. I was not. I felt.
Yeah, they're weird because they don't have a concept of what actual cold is.
I was like, yeah, this is where it's at. This is good weather.
They don't get it. They don't get it. But yeah, honestly, for me, yeah, I mean, there's probably recency bias here, I'll have to admit, but I think part of the reason why I would say that Chimaev and Burns is fight of the year, like leading contender through 3.5 months now,
yeah,
is because it not only was just a wild, fun fight, but there's real stakes to it. There's real intrigue coming into it. Kind of added a lot to it. It adds to some of the drama. There was not a title up for grabs, but there really was just a lot of fascination here. And I think it like way overachieved what anybody thought it was going to be. There was a lot of people who thought that, Chimaev was going to walk through. I didn't really buy that he would walk through Gilbert Burns. For the life of me at this point, I can't even remember what I really thought would happen, but I just didn't think that Chimaev was just going to blast someone like Gilbert Burns. So he's too good, and I think he proved that in this fight. So, but that's kind of why I give it a little bit extra weight over the other fight, Yeah. But I mean, obviously, we actually got some really fascinating fights already this year, right?
We've had some good ones, yeah.
So, what did we learn about Chimaev from this fight, Dan?
The man does have some weakness. At least he's not invincible. I mean, we saw him get hurt.
Which I feel like most people ought to have known, but yeah, I mean, now we have actual video evidence that shows something that we should have already known, right?
Yeah, I mean, he took some big punches, felt some real damage there. So,
I mean,
but
he bounced back from the damage.
We also learned that he's durable and that he is resilient and he doesn't break. So
he's not just a glass cannon.
That's a good way to put it.
I think that is something that we didn't know. No one knew what he was going to be like. No one knew what his gas tank was like. No one knew how he would respond to adversity. He hadn't really been put through that in the UFC. Maybe earlier in his career, I haven't seen some of his regional level fights or anything like that. But he's obviously a different fighter now than he was then. So to see him in this situation where he's up against one of the best fighters in the world, it's. And really, I'm not saying that Gilbert Burns is like a top 10 fighter, but like if he's number 2 at welterweight, which is one of the strongest divisions out there, where is Gilbert Burns in the grand scheme of fighters across the world? Is he in the top 25, 30? I think that's reasonable,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to do that against somebody like that is really impressive. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot here that now there's 15 more minutes of footage on Khamzat Chimaev. So the next guy who fights him is going to have a lot more that they can start trying to say, okay, he does this. Maybe we can try that. It definitely changes the way people can approach him.
Yeah, but it
takes
also
away some of that mystique.
It also adds just confidence to Chimaev that he,
for sure,
he can go in a hard fight.
Yeah,
whether a storm or 2 or 3, and still be there and get his hand raised. So,
by the way, I saw like a minority contingent starting to emerge on social media just today, Sunday. It's Monday now, but there were people who were saying that they thought Gilbert Burns won the third round. Did you get to watch that back since you've been home?
I haven't watched it from what I haven't watched the actual pay-per-view version.
Right.
The TV version.
You're in the house. It's very different.
So from what I gathered, I thought Chimaev had a pretty strong hold on the round, but did get rocked a bit, a couple times maybe in that round, where I could understand it might be close. But I thought Chimaev got 1 and 3, and Burns pretty handily too.
I meant to watch that round in particular back again today after I saw that kind of stuff, and then I just didn't have it in my written down plan, so it kind of slipped my mind. But watching it live, I really did think it was, I mean, not like the most solid of rounds. I thought out of the 3 rounds, it was definitely the closest of them, like that one that could actually go one way or the other. But yeah, I remember thinking, okay, I think Chimaev probably locked this up. But who knows? I mean, if I watch it again, maybe I feel a little differently. I don't know.
I will say this. I mean,
I'll trust the judges for sure. But sorry, you would go
in the co-main round 1 from my seat versus round 1 on TV. Completely different.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like,
no, it's
crazy.
Where were you?
Different.
What seat were you in, by the way? Just
like, I was in.
Don't give me the exact number and stuff. But just tell me like how far off you think you were.
I was row P.
Row P, okay.
You're right behind Rogan.
We're like 17 rows back or something like that. I forget what letter the
so
P is.
P, like 15th row about.
Okay.
Right behind the commentary
That's not terrible.
team.
It's not a terrible seat when it comes to any seat you can find in the house.
I had the same panel as Anik and Rogan and Felder.
Oh, that's good because you didn't have a door panel like 2 of the judges did.
No.
What a doofy thing. I don't even remember if we said that last week. If I said that one of the things that they ought to do is make sure judges are not seated at door panels, but that's something that definitely should change.
I did notice that there's another panel with just screens on it, and I don't know if that's meant for the commission to use or something. It's right next to the commentary team's panel.
I'd have to see what you mean. It could be a production team.
It could be production too.
I have a feeling that's what it is, but I would have to have been there to know what you mean. But yeah, I think we obviously learned a lot about Chimaev. I'm curious to see how the next fighter approaches him. It sounds like, well, who do you think is going to be next? Because Dana was talking about.
I thought Colby Covington. Yeah,
that's what it sounds like, and I think that makes a lot of sense, to be honest, because I don't know that a performance like this is necessarily what's going to strike fear in the heart of Kamaru Usman or anything like that. So if they do, if the UFC, I'm saying if a billion times, if the UFC wants to give Khamzat Chimaev like the best chance to beat Kamaru Usman, don't put him in with the fight right now. Give him a little bit more time to get a little bit more experience. A fight with Colby Covington, I feel like is actually, when I say this, just let me bear it out. It's a little bit lower risk because Colby Covington is not a finisher. I think he could hurt him, but like Gilbert Burns is the type of guy that's like really going to put you through the ringer, and he did. I think Colby Covington could kind of wear him out potentially, and that's where it would get problematic for Khamzat. But I think there's a better chance of Khamzat hurting Colby early and maybe even being able to finish. I don't want to say he's going to finish him. I'm not even making a pick at this point for sure, but I think they see that as almost like hey, we can get that one in because it's not going to just completely clean off Khamzat as like a potential threat right away.
Yeah, the only path to victory I really see versus Covington is a knockout. I don't think Colby can finish him. I don't think that's crazy to say. I think you're right basically in that Colby probably would just wear him out like he does everybody else.
I think you can probably find a way to maybe even TKO or finish him late if Khamzat actually does have gas tank issues. I can see that.
I don't know.
We don't know what 20-minute Khamzat looks like.
We don't. Okay, that's true. We don't know,
especially against
20
someone
and
who's
25
really gonna push pace like Colby would.
But we did see what 20-minute Masvidal and 25-minute Masvidal look like.
Yeah,
different
fighters. But yeah, so I it's got to be Covington next. I don't think they would look if Leon Edwards gets hurt, they're gonna put him in there. That's what you do. That's the only thing to do, right?
I guess.
What are you gonna do?
You can go
if Leon Edwards gets hurt, they're not. Who are they gonna put in there instead? There's actually really no other realistic option.
Well, we got this weekend. We got Luque and Bilal Muhammad.
That's true. I'll give you that. That actually is a reasonable option, but I think after the fight that we just had,
yeah,
I think that's what you'd have to do from a promotional
That's
standpoint.
what
It
would
would be almost,
sell. Yeah.
and I mean, all the traffic, all the numbers, everything is saying that Hamzat is the one that was the most interesting among people from this entire fight card, for the most interesting individual. So if
But I
you're
mean,
looking to sell pay-per-views, he's the guy.
but is the Connor talk dead?
What, Conor against
Usman?
Kamaru Usman?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? These things, they move with the wind. It could certainly come back up again. All Connor has to do is put a tweet out and then delete it, and then all of a sudden we're talking about him
Tweet
again.
and delete.
That's the move. Him and John Jones,
Yeah.
two of the best at what they do. One at talking, one at fighting and screwing his own career up. Yeah, but I think probably that's about it from this fight. I mean, Gilbert Burns, obviously we could ask kind of where he goes next, but I think with him it's really more about he's not quite going to be getting back to Kamaru Usman for a little bit. I think he's still got a little bit more to go.
Yeah.
I don't know who you'd put him up against next. I mean, maybe if they want to still give Jorge Masvidal something stiffer, maybe him against Masvidal. I don't know, but obviously Masvidal has a lot bigger problems going on right now.
Yeah.
So that would have to work itself out first. And I don't see that happening either. So I don't really have a good name off the top of my head, is really what I'm saying.
Yeah, probably not.
Let's move on though, because obviously we've got two big fights here, and then we've got some really interesting rounds, I think, to talk about as well. Aljamain Sterling against Petr Yan. We finally got the resolution from the fight that really didn't get to see itself through to the end last time, which realistically, Petr Yan most definitely was the better fighter that night in 2021. And tonight, or this weekend, depends who you ask. It was obviously a very close fight. I predicted a very close decision here. I'm not saying I said predicted a split decision, because that's weird, but I thought it would be close. I think I picked Petr Yan to win, but I thought it would be really close, and sure enough, it was really close, and Sterling got the win. But I was in the camp that thought Sterling won.
I think.
What did you think when you were watching live?
Watching live.
Yeah.
Watching live from my seat, it felt like Petr Yan won round one easily.
Okay, which is obviously that's what it came down to.
Basically, because it was low output. And from what I saw, it felt like he was winning until people like in like the fourth round. After the fourth round ends, someone I hear them talking. They're like, "Wow, people on Twitter are saying Sterling got round one." I'm like,
people around you in the section.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. I mean, I had a pretty live bet on the Funk Master, so I was kind of excited, to hear things like that.
Yeah.
And rounds 4 and 5, there's no there's rounds 2 through 5. There's no argument either way, really, who won.
Yeah, no, for sure. And honestly, I'm gonna want to talk about round 2 in just a moment, but to finish your thought.
But yeah, so when I rewatched it again. Well, obviously, we're going to talk about this round more in depth, but round 1 completely different from what I saw from my seat.
Yeah, it was really close, and we'll talk about that one more in length in just a moment once we get to contested rounds. But one thing I did want to highlight in particular from this fight is the fact that the scoring in round 1 and round 2 of this fight. Round 1, we agree, and we'll get into, like I said later, that it was a close round. It's a split round. The whole fight hinged on this particular round, which not a ton happened, especially for like the first couple minutes. You started to see more action later on, but still not the highest of output rounds. Excuse me. And then round 2 comes along, and this is like just a far and away Aljamain Sterling round. He had the back for 4 minutes, body triangle almost the whole time, I believe, as well. He's fishing for chokes. He is not quite getting super close on the chokes, but he's definitely not just riding position. He's peppering in some strikes, and not just the pitter patter strikes. He's landing some decent strikes from the back for what they are. Jan's trying to throw some too. Is he landing anything there? Maybe a little bit, but and then there's about a 30-second time frame in round 2, from about a minute 30 to go to about a minute to go. And in that frame, if you remember, Dan, Aljo just tees off, almost has Jan flattened out, and he's just teeing off on him. And these are big strikes. They look big on TV at the very least. Yeah, it's kind of a burst, right? It's not a very long time in this round, but I feel like when you couple the 4 minutes of grappling dominance, which is good duration of that grappling dominance, and the body triangle there's some, it's not necessarily high damage, but there's something to that. It's an actual diminishing move, right?
It
It's limiting the
sucks.
breathing.
I mean, it really does suck being in it.
I think it's something that at least, from my understanding, judges will at least account for. I'm not saying it's the same as like landing a giant uppercut, but I think it's something that they will account for
Mm.
as yeah, this is a diminishing thing here. When you add in the damage that was being done when I watched it live, that felt like enough to push it over to a 10-8 because it was such a different round from round one, especially. But that's not why you give it. It's just like that really ought to be a 10-8. I don't care the way the judges have been doing it. I don't to a lot of degree. I don't even care what the criteria says about it. The criteria and the sport ought to have it in them to be able to give a round like this a 10-8. And I fault the regulators, I fault the scoring, because, or excuse me, the criteria, because we've gotten to this point. I bet you 15 months ago, before Jan and Izzy round 5, this is a 10-8 round. And we're not arguing anymore. We're just like, yeah, this is a 10-8. This makes sense. But
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah.
And it's stupid. I think whatever we need to do as a sport, we need to figure out a way that a round like this is not considered the exact same score as the round we just saw.
Yeah, round 1 and round 2 are completely different rounds, yet they get the same score.
It's such a dumb thing.
So,
I hate it, and I really hope that we can move in the direction that corrects this. I see this as an actual problem because if that is a 10-8 and we're all allowed to make that a 10-8, then there's much less controversy surrounding this fight. You actually give the judges the right tools and say, okay, we can actually score that round even bigger so that it's very clear that Jan didn't get, he couldn't possibly have won the fight. At the very least, you give him 3 rounds and then he's got a 10-8 against him, so that's a draw.
right.
Which would have been like just an awful mess with the way the fight ended. The whole situation.
That would have been,
But
yeah.
it would have been terrible if we had a draw here, just because like what happens? Do they each keep their belt? Like that'd
Yeah,
be the
really,
worst.
what does
It
happen
would
there?
have been strange, but it would have felt more equitable, just because at least you have the right scores being applied to rounds. And again, I don't fault the judges in any way. I think they've been screwed with enough from Dana meddling last year with saying what he says. Look, Dana can't make policy, but
Oh,
his words ring very strongly in the community.
well, he meddled again in this fight.
Yeah.
He gave his thoughts. So,
Yeah, the judges screwed it up again, right?
apparently.
I don't think that Dana actually has read the 3.5 pages. I don't think he reads, just tweets.
Probably not.
He reads tweets, but they're only 280 characters top.
I mean, in that round 2, there was a point where Petr Yan covers up. He's like kind of flattened out, like you're saying, for like 3 seconds while Aljo's punching him, and I'm like, that's like the position people go to when they're just waiting for the ref to stop it.
Right, and I don't think that's really what he was doing there, but he did kind of get there. You're absolutely right.
He got it
that's
very
where
briefly.
I started to.
Yeah,
That's where I started to push past it. It wasn't the grappling. It was that particular sequence there. I was like, there's some really good damage here. He's landing hard.
Yeah.
And I thought that was enough to push it over because the other 2 Ds were so strong too. So when you have a round where he's not just riding out, you don't want. I feel like you don't want to give an 8 if it's just holding on to the back. Like round 3 is a good example. Round 3, it's not a round where a ton is really happening from Aljo. It's kind of like the same round that we saw, but maybe a little less success in trying to get to the chokes, and there's not as much landed either. So that should be a 9. Round 2 should be an 8. And I think we can make the distinction because there's much more of an effort to try and finish the fight. And we're seeing things landed that are getting that way. It's not just the effort, it's the actual results of it. I think we can distinguish that. And I hope we can get to that point again. That was all I had to say about that. Those rounds, though. But what do you think's next for Sterling? What do you think the new undisputed, well, not new undisputed, I guess he's newly undisputed bantamweight champion is next for him? What do you think?
TJ Dillashaw, like you said.
It makes sense.
So.
That's what that seems to be where they're going. It seems like he's healthy enough, and they'll do that. It's probably going to be a very cringe lead up to that fight from both of them, but that's just been fun. I like that he plays up the heel persona that has been assigned to him.
It's tough to be the heel versus TJ Dillashaw.
That's true.
He's a very hateable person.
Yeah, I can't, I'm trying to think back to when I did my Attitude Era binge, which is just about over. You and I still have to watch WrestleMania 17.
Yeah.
You and I will close it out together. Maybe this week, we'll see. But that fight, I know that fight, that whole period, I can't remember like a good heel versus heel story. Are there any good heel versus heel wrestling stories that you know?
I mean, you got that one.
Or did not happen?
You got the.
Oh, you know what? Triple H against Kurt Angle. That was pretty good because Triple
Yeah.
H somehow ended up being slightly less of a heel because it was his wife that Kurt Angle was going after, which was such
Yeah.
which was a really funny story actually. But yeah, maybe it'll be something like that, except hopefully
All
without
right.
the hitting on the wives. Leave the
Yeah.
women and
Or like Rock
children out of it.
Hogan. Rock Hogan they had like a double turn. Everyone was cheering for The Rock at the beginning, and then they switched mid match and started cheering for Hogan and
Oh,
booing
I
The
don't know.
Rock.
That's after
Yeah, that's
that was
after
because I
your
stopped mine.
yeah.
I'm stopping mine at WrestleMania 17.
Yeah.
That's when I consider it dead because they turned Austin heel, and that was a terrible idea. But yes, Dillashaw's obviously next. You have in here, you just kind of plug this in. Ray Longo is a treasure as part of
I
our conversation.
because from my seat I see after round 2 Aljo's dancing or doing his like pointy thing
Yeah.
and Jan just goes straight to his corner and sits down and you see Ray Longo walk in, he's just pointing at Aljo. He just keeps pointing at Jan and I'm like, I wish I know what he's saying. And then when I went home and watched it later, I was like, yeah, this guy's a treasure and we should just have clips of him in the corner from when he was cornering Weidman to cornering Mirab to cornering the whole Cerro Longo team because everything that comes out of his mouth is just hilarious.
And
So
he has guided 3 individuals to the UFC championship, 2 of which were among the most unlikely of champions. And realistically 3 if you want to add Chris Weidman in there as well, because most people really didn't think that
mm,
Anderson Silva was just going to lose. He still had the unbeatable aura to him, right?
mm-hmm.
So the fact that he has done that, yeah, I mean he's got to be cemented as one of the greatest MMA trainers of all time. I feel like his name doesn't come up enough, but he's really like the record speaks for itself. The body of work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune, the good pleasure to meet him last month at his gym. Spoke with him a little bit for that Aljamain Sterling feature that I wrote. And we exchanged numbers. I texted him after the fight, said congrats to to you all and especially Aljo. He said thanks, buddy, great night. So he was having fun. I'm sure he was
All
living it
right.
up. Finally, because they didn't get to celebrate last time. Really, it was like this time. I'm sure they're celebrating. So
Yeah.
good for Ray. Good for Aljo. Good for that gym. That is a blue collar gym right there.
Yeah.
What about Jan though? Like, what do we do with Jan here? Because the thing that what I saw suggested, and this is the one makes perfect sense to me. I think you might agree. Him versus Merab Dvalishvili.
Yeah. I saw that. I think Kaposa was the
A
one that
bunch of people have
suggested
been
it
saying that one.
from
Yeah,
me.
it's
That's why I heard it. Yeah, that's why I heard it first.
built-in storyline. It's perfect. I mean, they already don't like each other because of the whole thing with Aljo and everything.
They were yelling at each other or after the weigh-ins the
Yep.
other night. So
When I was at the gym, it was Merab actually who brought a Ukraine flag. He's Georgian, Republic of Georgia. There is no love lost between Georgian nationals and Russians due to all of the terrible things that have
mm-hmm.
happened in the last 3 decades between the two people. He brought a Ukraine flag so they could take a picture and post a picture of that. So there's definitely in the current climate of the world too, he definitely doesn't feel very friendly toward a Russian fighter right now. So that would be an interesting part of that as well. I would hate to see it to get too toxic between the two individuals because neither one of them is fighting in any sort of conflict in Europe right now, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But look, there is true heat there. This is not made up at all. So I think
No.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I like this fight and I like it. Basically no one's gonna get tired, so it's gonna be 100% go from the jump. And it's gonna
And I'm
be
curious too if Jan's going to be able to one stuff the takedown against someone who's really just a terrific takedown artist, and two, can Merab keep him down there because he often like I don't know if he lets these guys up or if he just can't keep them down, but there's kind of a sense that he can take these guys down at will and he's going to rack up numbers on the takedowns, but you don't really win the fight with just takedowns. So I'm interested in that dynamic too, and that's got to be a main event of like a fight night or something, or it's gonna be 3 rounder on a pay-per-view, right?
yeah. That would be I mean I'd like to see that 5 rounds because
I would
three
like it too.
3 rounds are just getting warmed up both these guys, so
That's true. I would like that as well. They can do that without being a main
yeah.
event or a title fight now. They started to dip their toes into it. There's no Diaz brothers involved in this one, so that makes it more complicated. It's I'm pretty sure it's a Diaz thing. Although did they do one recently? I can't remember.
Yeah, that was it just happened. I don't know.
It's a blur. Everything these things. There's way too much of this. The other question is, will we get a trilogy between Sterling and Yan eventually? Do you think so?
It was RDA, not RDA. Yeah, RDA, and he took the fight
Yes,
on
you're
short
right.
notice.
RDA and
And
Moicano.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
One of them is an unofficial Diaz brother.
And
we just don't know it. Moicano.
Yeah, and yes, we do get a trilogy at some point.
It's gotta happen, right? I mean, Yan would have to pass some tests, though. What if he can't get through Merab Dvalishvili?
If he, well, you know, okay. So it's in. All right, so it's in Jan's court if they get a trilogy or not.
Absolutely. Who knows? I mean, maybe if Sterling loses his next fight, maybe it's more possible. You know, we'll see. But
that would
moving on,
though,
we do
a non-title trilogy fight.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. I guess we'll see. I have a feeling it could happen because I do think Yan is an incredible fighter.
Yeah, he's very
still young. He's only 29. Alexander Volkanovski, though, the main event fighter who we're talking about third, because it's crazy as it is. This fight was it almost felt anticlimactic just because we had some craziness before, and the way this fight developed against Korean Zombie, Chan Sung-jung just did not have it. He didn't really have enough to offer the champion here.
No, he did not. I didn't like this fight from the jump.
I know you didn't.
It was basically a Volkanovski showcase, and he showcased.
And it was. It was.
He looked great.
Is this the best he's ever looked?
I think so, but I also think he had to look the best he's ever looked in this fight.
I guess so. I guess he probably did have to rise to that occasion, at least to answer doubters like you.
I expected it from him.
Not that you doubted him, but just the fact that you didn't think this fight should have been made.
Yeah, I didn't think this fight should have been made. I didn't think Usman Masvidal 2 needed to be made. These were just basically showcases for these two guys. I feel it's like a waste of a title defense. I mean, Volkanovski fights once a year. So.
Well, I'm having lunch with him on Tuesday, so I'm going to ask him if he plans to fight again this year.
Please do that and let him know. 2000.
I'll tell him all the criticism you've been giving him, and I'll let him know your address and the fact that most of the time you leave the door open and you'll be fine.
He can come over. I'll welcome him.
And Radar absolutely will not care. Be like, hey, how you doing? You got any food?
He'll fall in love with him. Yeah, basically, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All the champion has to do is let him out and use the bathroom. He's good.
Thing is, this was only his third title defense.
I know. He has not kept a very active schedule. It's been a weird time frame that he's had the belt, though. I'm much more sympathetic to the fact that things have been strange in the world.
Well, of course they have been.
I mean, he was literally supposed to fight last year, and then he got COVID a few days before. It wasn't in his control. I interviewed him the day before we all found out he got COVID. That whole interview was worthless. I couldn't use it. It's in the can, though. We had a great conversation. Okay. It was fine.
I just think he should have. I loved his post-fight interview. When he was on the mic, he said,
fired up.
Get your act together. I'll fight anybody who's ranked number one.
I'm curious if he's come down from. He probably has come down from that. When I see him, I'm sure he'll be much more chill and be like, "Yeah, I just want to have some food." Like, that's fine.
Why not? I think they're doing Cater and Arnold Allen next, right? That kind of.
Is that right? I didn't hear that.
I don't know if it's official, but that's kind of like the way both guys were kind of leaning. It seems maybe. I'd like to see the winner of that face him this summer.
So you don't want
fall,
oh you want
this summer. I feel very fortunate I got to see Alexander Volkanovski fight in person because I don't think that I'll have that opportunity very often.
You are so critical of these people's schedules when most of the time it's the UFC's fault.
Three title defenses in 3 years. It's not that much, really. That's kind of, and I know you said it's a crazy time, but still,
it's crazy time. I'm telling you, man, you're not giving him enough of a break. I'm almost, and don't forget, they had him coach on The Ultimate Fighter, so there's like a timeline there. He can't fight during that time.
I know, but at least he was on TV, so
right.
I give him a little bit of a pass on that.
See, there you go. And obviously, you like his attitude. You like what he's bringing.
I'm a fan. I just wish he'd fight more.
Fair enough. I get you. So, who should be the next challenger then? Do you want it to be? Do you want it to be that fight, or do you want it to be Max Holloway?
I wanted Holloway.
Do you still want to?
I still want to see Holloway 3. Okay. I mean, two of the closest fights.
Well, the first fight was not particularly close. That was
The
like
second
a
one
definite.
more so. Yeah, second one more so.
The second one's razor close. The first one, I don't even think Max would look at that and be like, "Yeah, I won that fight." And
No.
Max, to be fair, isn't one to look at even the second fight and say anything. It seems like he's just kind of like, "Listen, the judges said what they said. It's not my place. I'm gonna fight more. I'm gonna keep getting." He brings a good attitude. Max Holloway does. I really like that about him. He doesn't dwell on that kind of thing. He accepts the things that he cannot change and puts the effort into things he can. So I'm definitely curious if they get a third fight. That's what I want next. And I can kind of feel why Alexander Volkanovski is kind of tired of the idea of fighting Max Holloway again, because it's like, it almost seems like people, especially because of the second fight, they just want Holloway to fight him because they expect he's going to eventually take the belt away. Like, they just don't want Volkanovski to have it. And I do think there are some fans out there like that. I think there's some fans who just they want Max Holloway to be the champ. It's not that they don't want Volk to be the champ. They just want it to be Max. And I think that's kind of lame.
I'm sure there's people like that.
So like, I can understand why he would be resistant to the idea just because of the fans like that. But it's hard to deny that Max Holloway is not the second best fighter in that division. Do you just accept that and move on, and he has no pathway back to the title? I don't know. Especially because the second fight was so close. I feel like you have to give it a third try.
Well, also, Max is going to get some criticism here, too, from me.
Okay.
You should have to disclose your injury. Because if we knew what the injury was, maybe they say, okay, maybe we can wait this out. Maybe it's not that bad. It's just, he needs some extra, couple months real quick. It's nothing devastating. Instead,
how about they do it hockey style? Because in hockey they only do upper body and lower body injuries. That's what they call them.
You gotta tell me what it is.
All right.
Like, you're out of this fight. Why? Why are you out of this fight?
I for one disagree with you. I don't think they need to disclose the injury because that's something that can be taken advantage of.
It also can be taken advantage of. I'm having a bad weight cut. You know what? Let's say I rolled my ankle, or we'll have some kind of.
Everybody wants to say that.
And bam, now I don't have to fight. But then they make a new fight, and then Max is like, "Hey, I can fight. I'll be the replacement." Well, that's silly. You should just
baloney. Is it baloney?
It's baloney.
I love that all your sayings have food in them.
Yes.
Baloney. It's baloney. Bananas. You said that one earlier.
Bananas. Yeah.
Holy cannoli.
Yes.
What's the other one? You got another one?
I don't know. Another one.
I don't know. We'll think of it. I'm sure. I know you have another one. I know you've got at least 4. I keep track. I don't have a list, but in my head,
maybe some with macaroni.
Holy macaroni. That's the one.
Okay.
Holy macaroni.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that they're all food. I want you to force more. Just figure them out. Just try them out.
All right.
Pizza pie. All right. What about Korean Zombie though? It sounded like he was talking almost like, and granted, he was probably not in the best mental state right now, having been like beaten up pretty terribly. Probably shouldn't have been interviewed in the cage.
Real quick,
after the fight.
My cousin was with me, and he was asking, what's the origin? Why do they call him the zombie? And I was like, well, he gets hit and he keeps coming forward. He doesn't go down really. And then he's watching the fight and he's like, oh yeah, I see it. He didn't even go down. Just got cracked in the head and then was kind of wobbly. And Herb Dean said, no, it's over. Yeah. No more coming forward.
Yeah.
So
that'll about do it. That pretty much sums him up in a nutshell there. But yeah, either way, I mean, it sounded like he was starting to have doubts about whether he wanted to continue in the cage. I don't know if that's just post-fight in probably a concussed sort of state. So who knows? But I don't know. For a fighter like him, I mean, he's getting older. He's not going to get another title shot. This was his chance to be the champion. I think he knows he can't get there anymore. Does he want to continue with that? Because he does take a lot of abuse. I don't know. I hope he's in a good position where if he feels like that's the case, that he can walk away and feel financially stable. That's all I ever hope for a fighter.
Yeah, if he's done and doesn't want to take the punishment anymore, because like we said, he does take a lot of damage.
Yeah,
it's probably time.
Sure. Well, that bears watching. But no matter what, I'm grateful for all the entertainment he provided over the years, whether he continues or not.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely one of those guys who, like, he's not in the Hall of Fame, but he's in like the Hall of like badassery or something,
Well, he'll get a
Hall of Violence. We need a Hall of Violence.
I mean,
that's for the fighters that are not necessarily champion caliber, but they were just so awesome to watch.
I mean, him and Yair, that might be a Hall of Fame fight.
That's definitely a Hall of Fame fight. I mean, it should be.
Yeah, so we'll
It
see.
will be.
Maybe next year, maybe it gets put in. Who knows?
Maybe. Anything else you wanted to share kind of about your experience being in the crowd before we get to contested rounds, sir?
Oh, just a lot of fun. I wish I could
Yeah.
do it every pay-per-view.
How was the food?
Food was. Did I even eat any?
Because I know you were very down on the Barclays Center food, but
Oh,
you like the
Barclays Center
Garden
food
food.
is trash. Um,
How does ViStar Veterans
okay,
Memorial
so
Arena stack up?
I ate prior. I ate at a brewery beforehand, before
Okay.
we went in, so I wasn't concerned about the food. I was more into the
I see.
Howlerhead.
Okay.
While I was there, also I got to meet 3 of the traveling judges prior.
Oh yeah.
Met Sal D'Amato, Derek Cleary, and Eric Colon, all very nice, cool people.
I met them when they were in New York as well.
It was quite a treat to finally, talk to the guys we talk about every week.
Yeah, did they beat you up for
So
all those scores you trashed?
yeah, yep.
Good, you had it
Eric
coming.
Colon was like, "Here, this is an omoplata,"
Yeah.
and he put me in it. And then Derek Cleary was like, "Yep, and I'm gonna rear naked choke you."
Mm-hmm.
And then Sal was like, "You got 10-7 to bro," and that was it.
That's true. He's given a couple 10-7s too. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was it.
While he was calf slicing you, I'm sure.
It was cool. They were very excited for the card.
Yeah.
They're like, "This card is fantastic."
It really is.
So,
it was a fantastic card.
They're very, very enthusiastic about their job. They're very excited. So
That's
cool
something
to
that I
see
don't think anybody understands about the
Mhm.
judges is that they really do love the sport.
Mhm.
They're very passionate about the sport. They don't do it because it's like a 9 to 5 punch in. They have to fly all over the country. They have to take time away from their families. They have to make time away from, the regular jobs to do this and figure out how that dynamic works. It's not easy. And, the 3 individuals you named, D'Amato, Cleary, Cologne, they're 3 of the best in the world. I think we should be pretty psyched that we get people that are this passionate and this sharp and this
Mhm.
understanding of the criteria, how it's assessed, being able to handle the big moments like these big fights.
Yeah.
I think we're
was-
pretty fortunate to have people like that. We need more people like that. We definitely need more judges who are of their caliber, and I don't think we have enough of them yet. But we have who we have right now, and I think that's pretty okay.
Yeah, you can go listen to last week's show, and we offer some suggestions to fix that.
That's right. That's
So-
right. And the last one is if you don't like it, you can go. Well, let's go to contested rounds, sir.
Yeah.
We've only got 6 rounds. I mean, only it's 6. I feel like it's kind of like a normal number, especially for the number of rounds that were. How many rounds did were scored?
32.
32 rounds. That is a big lift for these judges. So 6 out of 32 is what is that, like 80 something percent?
81.25%.
That's a really good percentage. I think the percentage was a little lower to start the year, and I think it started to really, because of the recent events, it started to kind of normalize back to usually see it around 73-ish%. Judges will disagree on a round. That does include a 10-8-9 split too.
Yeah,
any form of disagreement. And the 8-9 is of course a very tricky conversation for all the reasons that we outlined earlier, right? We don't have to get into that again, but we got to start with the title fight. That was a split decision, of course. Sterling and Yan. It was all 48-47s because there were no 10-9s, or excuse me, no 10-8s. Round 1, as we've already said, is the round that is up for debate. So, Dan, what happens in round 1?
Round 1, not a lot. We got Yan stalking Aljo pretty much for the first half of the round, and in this first half, Sterling's landing good body kicks, good leg kicks, and Jan's not answering with anything really at all.
Yeah.
I don't agree with what the commentary was saying, that they're saying Yan was being so aggressive. I didn't see any aggression. I saw him just walking him down and not throwing anything.
Aggression without throwing, though. That's something that doesn't score.
Right. It was just stalking. As the round does progress past this point, he does land a couple strikes, but I only think he lands like 3 solid punches and a body kick, really. Aljo continued with his body work and leg kicks, and he landed a solid elbow, too, in that round. I don't hate a score for Yan, because I think it is still close.
Sure.
But I think Sterling's the more effective fighter here, and I think that's the better score. 10-9 Sterling.
Yeah, I also was 10-9 Sterling watching it live. I watched it again today. I tried to make a point to watch as many of these twice as I could today. Usually I don't have the time. It just kind of worked out today for me to do so. And yeah, watching it again, I think it was way closer. I saw the argument before for Yan, but I really saw it today. I still feel like Aljamain Sterling took it for because there you have to weigh the whole 5 minutes. And I feel like most people just said, well, nothing happened for 2 minutes, so let's just look at those 3 minutes. And if you just look at 3 minutes, it's a lot easier to give that round to Jan. But there's 2 other minutes that happen. More, we're rounding at 2 minutes. It's probably not quite 2, but Aljamain is starting to build just a little bit of a lead, and no one's landing it the big one, right? Jan lands something like right at the horn, which counts, and I thought that was one of his best strikes of the whole round. But I didn't think it was the type of strike that for the round that developed up to that point that it just turned the round to him. I didn't see it. I think it's a Sterling round. I think it's a close round. I think you can give it to either way, but I feel good about Sterling, and anyone who can't see it that way, I mean, you're either honestly, I don't see it as anything other than you've got a bias or you've got a misunderstanding of the way things work. It's close. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So the judges for that one saw it our way. Were Sal D'Amato and local judge Eliseo Rodriguez. I think they made a point, just like they did in Ohio a few weeks ago, to get a local judge on like just about every fight, especially the championship fights. Troy Winkapaw was in the other one as the local judge. So I kind of like doing that in the sense, because I think at least some of these, Eliseo Rodriguez has worked a bunch of shows. I think I remember working a bunch of PFL shows and actually acquitting himself pretty well there. So I didn't, when I saw the name, I was like, oh, okay, that's not bad. And then Troy Winkapaw's also worked some as well and acquitted himself just fine. So it's good to give them more experience. This is how we get better judges, more better judges.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky though, because what do you do? It's a title fight. Like there's big consequences here if they're not ready for it. So, but fortunately, I think everything was fine. Chris Lee saw it for Petr Yan. So as much as everybody likes to bash Chris Lee, anyone who thought Petr Yan was the winner, just remember that Chris Lee saw it your way. Maybe he's not that bad, or based on your own logic, maybe you don't know how to judge either. I lean into the former, but it's okay if you feel terrible too. that anything to add on that one before we move on, Dan?
No, I think you got it. We're good.
Yeah. Let's go to the other split, which was Mackenzie Dern and Tecia Torres, which happened 2 fights before this. 29-28's all around, 2 for Dern, 1 for Tecia Torres. And again, it's round 1 that the whole fight hinges on. So what happens here?
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty close round. Kind of a high-paced start. Dern's coming out just throwing haymakers and missing.
That's aggressive, but also not landing.
Torres landed a good amount. Just don't think she had any real impact on her punches. I thought her most impactful strikes are those side body kicks that she's getting some good power on.
That's like a strike I associate with Tecia. Like when I think of her, that's that's definitely like a Tecia Torres strike.
Yeah, I mean, even though early I think Torres is edging it, I think Dern starts finding a home for her straight rights, and every time she lands, she's kind of stopping Torres in her tracks, getting good reactions. She lands a few of those as the round continues on, and based on the impact, that's where I'm going. I'm going Dern 10-9, even though Torres likely has the volume edge. I just didn't think she had much impact behind her strikes.
Yeah, I think there's actually like a decent amount of impact there, but I don't think it's enough to make up for the fact that when Dern does land, I think she's landing pretty heavily. I think that the volume disparity isn't crazy in this one when it comes down to it, and the strikes, you got to weigh the more immediately impactful strikes, and I think the ones that are more immediately impactful are coming from Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah,
it's not as technically sound, it's not as economical. She's swinging and missing. It's not great economy of her movement and that kind of thing, but it doesn't matter because that doesn't score. It's all about what you actually land.
That is something that John Anik, I don't know which fight he said it in. It could have been this one where he's quoting the stats and he's using it to say the more effective fighter thus far is such and such, landing at 50% a clip as opposed to the other fighter.
I think it was this fight. I think
landing
you're right.
At less than 50% or whatever. That should the amount that's getting stuck in people's heads, and I know he doesn't intend to do it because he's.
I think the use of the word effective just happened to be the wrong word choice, and it just it's something that you kind of say. Like sometimes I fight the urge to say like he controlled him on the ground because control is like
Yeah, I think you're right. It probably was this fight. So like stuff like that, people are gonna hear and go, oh. They landed more, and then they'll post a graphic of the total strikes for the whole fight and be like, "How'd they win?" Huh?
I will say this. I think what Anik did there wasn't as like grave a sin as we hear from a lot of the commentary team. I think one, John is honestly quite good oftentimes at being a level-headed presence when it comes to the scoring. Everyone has room to improve, of course, but I think here this was more just an accidental poor choice of
Right,
the
yeah.
word effective, because I think probably he would have meant to say efficient.
Right,
And I think
normally he
efficient
does say
was
efficient,
totally
usually.
accurate. And I imagine it was a more of a slip of the tongue. And when you talk
Yeah.
as much as John does during the course of a 6.5 hour event, I'm not going to crucify him for using a slightly different word that just so happens to be a very important word to the criteria.
Yes.
But you're right, it is there, and it could potentially confuse somebody, but only if they've actually like read the criteria or remembered John's spiel at the beginning of events. So I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, like I said, I'm not going crazy on it. But point being, we both gave this round to Mackenzie Dern for the heavier impact, right?
Yes.
The more impactful lands. Very close though, really, really close. If you want to say Tecia Torres won this one, I see the argument very, very well there. This was, of course, we agreed with the majority here in Chris Lee and Derek Cleary. Barry Luxembourg, a local judge, once again, another local judge with 2 traveling judges, saw this one for Tecia Torres, but perfectly fine, reasonable score. I really don't hate it.
Okay.
And he's worked several of these UFC
Yeah.
events. I think he's proved to be a pretty solid Florida-based judge, Barry Luxembourg.
Mhm.
That was all the splits we have. We do have some, rounds here and there from fights that were really not in question. It was all like 30-27s and then a 29-28 because of a split round here. But, I think we got to at least start with one that I thought was probably a little more interesting of some of these in Mark O. Madsen. Not Mark O. Madsen, not Marco Madsen, Mark O. Madsen. He beat Vince Pichel again, 30-27 twice in the 29-28. Round 2 is where we have the discrepancy here among the judges, a little bit of disagreement here. What happens in this round?
Pichel landed the harder shots in this round. Madsen, got his jab going pretty well. And he landed a big elbow while he was stuck in a calf slicer. I thought Pichel won this one rather clearly. But maybe the 2 that saw it for Madsen saw a heavier impact from his strikes than I saw. I mean, it's always possible.
It is possible.
I kind of think
Can't rule it out.
The way the round ends, you got Pichel on top, landing some good shots. I thought it was pretty clear for Pichel.
When I watched it at first, I thought it was really clear for Pichel. And I was very surprised to see that there was a split. I didn't want to crucify the scoring there, but I thought it was real surprising. I watched it again, and I started to see it as a little bit more close.
Okay.
But I do still think this is like a close but clear round for Vince Pichel.
All right.
So, I think Sal D'Amato got it right. I think the right score here, the better score was for Vince Pichel. I don't think it's the worst thing for Howard Reichbach or Chris Lee to score it that way. Both of them are local Florida judges, although Chris Lee travels. But yeah, I didn't think it was the greatest of scores here for Madsen. So yeah, you and I were both in agreement with Judge D'Amato on Vince Pichel, right?
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Couchside override.
Love it. Next up, we are at Ian Gary, who was the featured prelim, getting the win over Darian Weeks. Again, 30-27s twice and 29-28. And again, it's round 2 where there is some disagreement. So, Dan, what happens here?
I think it's a close round. I think Gary, he's landing his left pretty good. Then his follow-up right is being blocked there and missing a lot of it. Weeks is doing a good job avoiding that follow-up right for the most part. But the problem is Weeks isn't really returning any offense of his own. So when he does throw back, he does have some success. He's just not throwing back enough. I think Gary is more effective overall, even though he did miss quite a bit. I think you can make an argument either way here. I think I think Gary landed slightly better, I would say.
Okay.
And more often, albeit not that much.
I think he did his best work earlier in the round.
So
I think probably the way I saw this round kind of going was that he had built up enough of a lead. It wasn't a big lead, but it was kind of a clear lead through the first part of the round. And then you saw Weeks kind of start to take it a little bit more damage being dealt. Not crazy either, but and he gets like a takedown at the end that doesn't really count for much of anything. You don't really score that, but yeah, I thought at least he was able to kind of make it closer near the end. I still think this is a Gary round. So I saw it the same way as you did, same as Derek Cleary, same as Troy Winkapaw. Eric Colon was the out judge on this one. I don't think it's a crazy score. I wouldn't have gone that way, but I also recognize that this was a reasonably close round. And I think any sort of almost entirely striking based round like this, a close round like that, I mean, what's it going to come down to? A strike or two here or there that
Yeah,
maybe
that's
you see
that's the
better
thing.
or worse than someone else.
I felt he didn't really do much early, at least.
Early, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Early is
so
different, but I think he started to come back a little later. I can kind of see it there, but I still think I feel very good about. I saw this round twice. First time I was actually surprised. I thought the first round of this fight was kind of a closer round. I was surprised this was the split.
okay.
But nonetheless, everyone I saw all three rounds when I watched this freaking Gary.
Mm.
I feel good about it. It doesn't matter. We got the right winner, but it was a closer round. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll let Eric alone off the hook. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll cut him off the hook
Yeah.
on that one. Yeah.
All right. Let him off the hook. Rest in peace, Dennis Green. Moving on, we got two more fights now. Anthony Hernandez against Josh, aka Best Fremd, via unanimous decision. That is not his nickname, but I think it should be. Although he's probably got to win the fights to get there, right? Again, 30-27s and a 29-28. Round two, once again. What happened in this round, sir?
Well, let me just point out that Anthony Hernandez, whatever song he came out to, was absolutely atrocious.
We didn't hear it.
It was one of the worst.
We have no idea.
Worst songs I've ever heard.
Was it Mary Had a Little Lamb? Can we just say it is and move on?
Yeah, but so let me start.
Cool. It's not a great song.
Get that out of the way.
Cool.
Anyway, the round started good for Hernandez. He has him in that crucifix, and then he gets reversed. I remember watching this. I was like, what the hell just happened? How did he get out of that and end up in side control? And then when I got to watch it on TV, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Basically, just like a fireman carry, kind of. Friend then attacks that solid guillotine. I thought that was pretty tight. Landed some good punches in the clinch. He was pretty good. Landed some good knees and stuff. Hernandez does regain control and get it on the ground and attacks the solid guillotine himself. Then lands some strong ground and pound, towards the end of the round. I think Fremd was a bit more effective overall, but I really kind of see it both ways here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I really don't even have a ton to add to what you've already said, but I did also see it the same way as you for Fremd. I thought the more effective offense was coming from him. Simple as that, really.
Mm-hmm.
Sal D'Amato had it the same way as you and I did for Fremd. Barry Luxembourg, Chris Lee, they were in the majority here, but we disagree with them. So what does that mean?
Couch side override.
That's two for Sal on this evening.
Racking them up.
Mm-hmm. In fact, we didn't rule against. Well, I guess I would be spoiling it. Why don't we get to our last round? Yeah, Julio Arce. He got again another 30-27 twice and a 29-28 over Daniel Santos to open it up. Willie Cat, as they call him. This is the first round. Once again, is up for grabs to decide. Well, not decide the fight, but at least where there was a discrepancy. So hey, what happens, Dan?
Another close round, obviously.
Yeah,
and probably was leaning Santos early.
I think so too. Yeah.
But Arce, he started countering well, landed some stiff punches while Santos stalked him and threw wild strikes, like just crazy all over the place. He did land some heavy ones, including 2 elbows and a big right to the head. But then Arce lands that big head kick, and that basically is the reason he gets the round. Followed up with some good punches, put a stamp on the round. Yeah, 10-9 Arce.
I think it's because of that ending that it felt like that really ought to be enough to get the round. When you account for the whole body of work of the round, because Arce's not necessarily off the best. I dropped my phone. Arce's not off to the very best start to this round. He's a little more patient, maybe reading his opponent. I spoke to Julio Arce a couple weeks ago, and he was saying he knew that this guy was, a lot of spinning attacks and that kind of thing. So he was kind of prepared for that, and he's a veteran kickboxer, boxer, a lot of striking experience in his life. So I'm not surprised that he kind of gave it a little bit of time before he kind of got going. And then when he did, he really took over. I think the big kick, and it kind of really changes the round. He was already taking it. I think it's honestly kind of a semi-clear round for Julio Arce here. I mean, am I wrong in thinking that this really ought to be a Julio Arce round, Dan?
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Santos's score. Of scoring it for Santos.
You don't mind it going that way?
I'm not a big fan of it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Maybe from his perspective, the kick wasn't that big. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
It seemed big from.
Of course, if you miss
So-
one strike for one reason or another, the ref walks in front. You got a post in front of you. The guy is positioned in such a way that you can't see the way it lands. Who knows? Billion reasons why. They're not checking their phone, everybody. But I feel like as long as you saw that strike and you saw the general gist of the round, I think we know who wins this round. I think this is an Arce round.
Yeah.
I think it's definitively an Arce round. Good thing we have 3 judges there. Because 2 of them definitely saw it the right way. I sided with Chris Lee and again Sal D'Amato. Whereas Eliseo Rodriguez, who again I don't think is a poor judge by any stretch for the imagination, but I just didn't think this was the greatest of scores.
And that does it.
That does it. That is it for the contested rounds from UFC 273. What about the finishes, Dan? Because there was only 3. There's only 2 of us. Which one did you take as your favorite?
Well, clearly, Oleinik with his scarf hold.
Yeah,
that whole fight was me in my seat yelling, "Oh, triangle! What? Oh, how did he get out of that? What? It's over. It's over. He's not getting out of this. This is the worst position in the world. It's over." And then the tap.
Yep.
So,
did you see the video, by the way, of I think the UFC account posted it. It was Jared Vanderaa finds him afterward. And he's like, "Hey, show me how you do that." So in just a 45-second thing, you see Oleinik is teaching Vanderaa how to do the scarf hold.
It is one of the most unpleasant things to be put in.
And then Vanderaa was today. He tweeted something about he's like, "Well, guess I'm going to be drilling how to defend against the scarf hold." And the first thought I had was like, "You just lost to the guy who's going to do it. You don't need that anymore."
No one else is going to do it. No.
What's his face? Alexander. What's his face? Romanov. Is that his name?
Okay.
The heavyweight. I think he can do that too. I think he's got a few of those. So if they fight each other, he's at least going to be prepared.
Okay.
For that position. I'm pretty sure he's got a couple of scarf holds. So he's like kind of passing the torch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your favorite?
Well, it's probably not the one you would have picked as your favorite. I had a feeling you wouldn't because it was Mike Malott stiffening up Mickey Gall, finishing him in under 4 minutes. Mickey Gall was a plank when he got hit by that. It was a punch, right? I'm at this point, I'm blanking now.
It was
a long
left.
day.
Yeah, it was a left.
Thank you. It was a left hand, and he just starches him. And Mickey seems to wake up, but the moment he's out is the moment the ref can stop it, and the ref was stopping that fight. So I think it was the right call. It was a good finish. And then Mike Malott promised to give his $10,000 show money or win bonus.
Yeah, show money.
$10,000 he pledged of his own money. And then Dana's like, no, you can keep that. I'll give you $10,000 out of my own pocket. Yeah. How magnanimous. Yeah.
Yep.
But it's very nice what Malott is trying to do, donate money for good cause.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it from UFC 273. We got a pay-per-view next month, but we've actually got a busy fight weekend this weekend, sir, with Bellator back in action and UFC. And look, I don't think this is I don't think this is any sort of crazy thing to say. Bellator has the best top of the card. Of these two.
But we deserve a cut because they did zero marketing for this card. I haven't heard about this from anyone in an official Bellator capacity whatsoever. No TV ads, nothing on the internet. It's insanity that their biggest featherweight fight that they could possibly book. They've said nothing about it, and
not just that, but the end of their light heavyweight Grand Prix.
The light heavyweight Grand Prix. They have done nothing.
I'm of the understanding that Monday is a press conference.
Oh, great! How would I supposed to know that? You don't talk about it at all.
It's coming. Granted, it follows up one of the bigger fight weekends we've had in a while. It's they're always gonna have a hard time getting attention. I will say, if anybody from Bellator is listening, you can pitch me things. First off, I'm willing to listen to pitches. I don't get a lot of pitches from Bellator. I get pitches all the time from PFL. I get pitches from One. I get pitches from all the places. UFC. I don't get anything from Bellator. If I talk to anyone in Bellator, it's almost always me saying, "Hey, I'd like to speak to him. I'd like to speak to her." And sure enough, I spoke to AJ McKee the other day. Great conversation.
It's a good guy. He should fight.
And I'll have that Q&A out this week. But So there's something that'll be a little promotion for you, Dan. But that's kind of me making the effort, which is fine. I just think it deserves to be covered.
But you don't work for Bellator.
No, I don't. I work for the New York Post, but I
So-
think it's newsworthy enough to cover. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes, but I'm saying we've got nothing from a Bellator official capacity saying, "Hey, watch this fight," at all.
Yeah,
it's kind
they
of
definitely should do a lot more with their marketing pushes and things, especially on channels like, I mean, they have CBS. It's all under the same umbrella that they could potentially use, and they don't really do that. I think they do. They have a lot of room to. I don't want to make this about the marketing because I want to talk about the fights and get this over with.
I'm trying to get us a paycheck. We're doing the job for them.
Well, if you want a paycheck, you can reach out, but I don't want to work for them. I work for the New York Post, and that's fine for me. But let's talk about the fights, sir.
All right.
AJ McKee, Patricio Pitbull. At the very least, I know you're interested in this fight,
Yes.
even though we already saw it. We already saw it kind of end very quickly the first time. But you got to think the rematch isn't going to go the same way.
I think it's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be fun too.
And I'm excited
I do
for it.
think AJ McKee did enough to show me that, he probably is better than the Patricio Pitbull of 2022 last fight when it was 2021. So I have a hard. It's hard to count out Pitbull because he is just a fantastic fighter who, realistically, if he had fought under a different banner, we would be talking about him probably with the same reverence we talk about guys like Korean Zombie and things like that, because he's a freaking, like Joe Rogan says, he's an animal.
Yeah.
He loves to call people animals and things.
Yeah.
Holy cannoli.
he is. I mean, I guess he is on the slide, I guess you would say, or more so AJ McKee is on the rise. He is the guy now.
He is the guy,
taking
absolutely.
the spot. So, yeah, I see him winning this fight again, and then hopefully we get to see him in Volk fight in a cross-promotional match.
My understanding is that he has 3 fights left because of the Champions Clause on his contract.
Does this count as one?
This counts as one. I think he
Okay.
would love if he could knock them out sooner than later. He just wants his money. I don't think he necessarily cares if it's Bellator money or UFC money. He really just wants to be paid what he's worth. Doesn't sound like they've gotten there yet from Bellator. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But once his free agency comes up, maybe he'll go over on his own. Who knows?
We shall see.
He's not exactly dancing around the fact that he just wants to get paid. His nickname is the Mercenary.
I like it. Don't try to act like you're the best in the world. Just say, hey, I want to get paid the most.
I feel like AJ McKee is a fighter up your alley. I think you'll like him.
I do like him.
I think you'll like him as he continues on with his career too.
Keep on going.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the other fight, and not that I'm not interested in McKee and Pitbull, because these are 2 very fascinating fighters to me, and I do think the fight will develop into a more interesting and compelling potential back and forth than we had. But Vadim Nemkov and Corey Anderson really fascinates me because I think Nemkov legitimately has an argument to be made as the best 205er in the world. He can't prove it necessarily with, particular victories in the cage here, but I think just the body of work is going to eventually add up, and you're going to have to say, look, it's undeniable that he's one of the best in the world, and he eventually could prove it.
Yeah, except I'm picking Corey Anderson this weekend.
Why is that?
Because he's beast in 25-8.
Not anymore.
I
believe he's got a different nickname, right?
Yeah, it's something different now.
Overtime? Is it overtime?
Yeah, Corey Overtime Anderson.
If he goes back to beast in 25-8, I think he's probably going to win. Maybe in the 26th minute of round 6.
I just see him doing it.
Yeah,
getting it done.
So probably decision is what you're saying.
I'm going with knockout.
Corey Anderson, what round?
Knockout. Early.
What round you got?
Round 1.
Wow. Look at this. Okay. I mean, he's shown power. He has shown to be, I think, a better fighter than anyone really got to see in the octagon. I think he probably found that extra gear in his career. He's a fascinating fighter. I think, if he gets a win over Nemkov too, you could make an argument that he's the best 205er in the world. I mean, him and Jan split a few fights, and there's some intrigue there.
Got 3 straight finishes, so
I am picking Nemkov though. I'm kind of very much on the Nemkov train.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be more like a decision. That's how I see it. I don't know that it'll even be the most fascinating of fights. I think it could end up being kind of one of those tougher 205-pound fights that don't necessarily always entertain you. But I think he's the better guy. I think he's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, but it's about time this Grand Prix wraps up. So
the Grand Prix and it's title fight too, of course. A year is a reasonable time frame for them to do it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, Pride did it in a night.
Pride did it. No, they did several nights. Stop that.
2 nights.
It was 2 nights. I believe it was 2 nights. Yeah, they would fight 2 times in one night, and then there was another night where they would fight in the finals. I always forget which which order it was. It's been a while since I've watched a Pride fight, which actually depresses me.
See,
So
you do it
I
that
kind of
way.
want to go back and watch it.
You can do 2 Grand Prix per weight class a year.
Yeah, but they have to give out $1 million for that a year, and they don't want to do that.
They'll make it though.
There's a budget, sir.
They're gonna make it.
How do you budget your money, sir?
By paying fighters the fights I want to watch.
That doesn't sound like the way Dan Urban does his books.
I'm very good at budgeting other people's money.
I believe it. I believe it. This is in California. It's in San Jose. So Andy Foster's run that commission, one of the best in the country, and I expect he'll bring in some of the best judges in the country. It's a Friday. It's the day before the UFC. I don't think you'll see judges do double duty, but I think we'll get some pretty solid judges. Probably, Mike Bell or Ron McCarthy. California-based judges, I imagine, will be there. I'm not sure which state Herb Dean will be working in. He could be Vegas. He could be California. I don't know. It's always interesting when we have these ones so close because you kind of you get just about everybody from the talent pool of the working, top judges and referees are like it's like all hands on deck, right?
Yeah. So
we'll see. Was there another fight you were interested in? There was one, at least I was. I don't know if it's the same one as you.
No.
You don't care. I am interested in Aaron Pico. It's unfortunate it's a late replacement in Adley Edwards. I don't know a ton about Adley Edwards. Maybe he's a fascinating opponent. But Pico, they gave him the roughest of starts. They booked him terribly at the beginning. The people handling his career did a terrible job. Bellator did a terrible job. Everyone did a terrible job by this kid because, yeah, of course he wants to fight the toughest guys, but don't put him with Adam Boric in fight 5. That was just a dumb decision. Looks worse in hindsight, but even then it was like, come on, this guy's fighting a veteran. He's a prospect. Don't do that. I like to see how he progresses. I would like to. At first I was kind of against him just in the sense that like I hate being told this guy's gonna be the one that takes over sport when he hasn't fought yet. I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of just skeptical because you're telling me to believe it. But now that he's kind of had his knockdowns, he's paid his dues. I'm not rooting for him in the sense that I'm like, yeah, go Pico. It's nice to see somebody, rise through, persevere through adversity like that. And he seems to be rounding form. I'm interested.
Yeah. All right.
Will he ever be a world beater? I don't know. But, I think he could still be a solid fighter.
All right.
UFC, of course, is the next day. And I know you're Team UFC all day. The main event here is good. It's a very solid main event. I think on any other weekend, this would be the more interesting main event that UFC would put on against Bellator or any other competition. But I do think that the 1-2 punch of the 2 title fights with Bellator is more compelling to me. But yeah, Vicente Luque, he's almost never in a boring fight, right?
No, Luque is awesome.
Bilal Muhammad doesn't necessarily have that reputation, but he's a very tough out. I'm interested to see what kind of goes on here. I think if Muhammad does win, I think he's probably going to be able to grind out Luque. He's not really known as a finisher. Luque is most definitely known as a finisher. So
yeah, it's gonna be if he wins, it's a grindy win.
Yeah.
So,
but like you alluded to, the winner of this fight reasonably could be the next title shot, or could step in. For Leon Edwards if Leon was to get hurt, which I'm not rooting for. I want the guy to get his shot again. God. Just give him one more chance against Kamaru Usman. It's a different time. He's done the work. But yeah, whoever wins out of here at least is a very reasonable argument to be next too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What you pick?
I'm gonna go with Luque.
I will also pick Luque. I am going to say Luque knockout round 2.
No, I think Luque sub. Luque sub off a takedown guillotine.
What round?
Round 3.
All right, interesting. Sub in round 3.
Mm-hmm.
Low percentage, sir.
High percentage this time.
All right, fair enough. And of course, it's Nevada, like we said. Again, top judges, top refs. We're gonna get the best, except they're gonna be split between 2 states. So but there's enough good quality officials out there that we can handle it in North America with the splits there. I'm sure. Were there other fights on this undercard that you were interested in?
I'm interested in a lot of it. Miguel Baez is always a favorite.
He's lost 2 in a row too. He's got Andre Viallo next.
He's one of those guys that could be the total package if he just can get it together.
Yeah, he's got time too.
He's young.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with. But Andre Fiallo's pretty good too. So I'm gonna go with Baeza.
Okay.
By sub.
I will go with by decision.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Any
But
other
I
fight?
am more interested actually than, and believe it or not, it's a heavyweight fight among involving a non-heavyweight contender, which for me is almost like, sacrilege.
Who we
But
got?
it's Huggy Bear, man. Chris
Huggy
Barnett.
Bear. Are you sure he's still on this card?
My understanding is he's on this card. Am I wrong? Did something change?
Oh, there he is. Okay, Martin Boudet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see another flip victory dance. So
the guy's just fun.
Yeah.
You know what? He makes you want to watch.
I'm gonna go with a knockout for Barnett.
I will also go with a knockout for Barnett. I'm gonna say round 1 because shoddy.
Round 1, and then we also get another awesome GIF.
I won't go that far. That's tough to predict. By the way, the thinking of memes, and we can close out on this, sir. The image, and you probably didn't see this when you were watching the fight live, but the image when I think it was in round 3, Sterling takes the back again of Petr Yan, and he gets this like Cheshire grin on his face. He's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's great." I'm watching it live, and then I saw Ben Folks from the co-main event posted that image up there. I was like, "Yes, this is definitely one of the best memes," and this whole series has given us 2 of the best memes because we also had the infamous Petr Yan raising his fist in celebration after getting disqualified, or just before he officially got disqualified in the fight that he should have won if he just didn't deliver a knee, and then he wouldn't have had to lose this time to Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah.
It's his own fault. Shot himself in the foot, and there will never be a better self-owned picture representation in history than Petr Yan raising his fist that way.
And that does it for this episode of the Couchside Judges post UFC 273. We'll be back again on Monday or maybe Sunday. I don't know.
We'll be back sometime, and hopefully you'll be there to listen to us. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm sure we'll probably have a mix of Bellator and UFC. We'll have to figure out what the balance is, but yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening.